Ladies and gentlemen, if I have your attention, and this afternoon we have with us Noor Dasmesh Singh from Noor Architects Consultants.
So thank you for a very generous introduction. My special congratulations to the people behind this stupendous initiative of today at this grand NSIC venue for FOAID 2024. My lecture today is on the Capitol complex in Chandigarh, the UNESCO heritage list, which is a very unique transnational serial nomination of Corbusier's 17 sites in the year 2016. The broad contours of my presentation, if I may take the liberty of not conforming to a set structure, but will touch upon various facets of the glorious precinct from a more tangible standpoint of architecture, urban design, landscape design, and a sort of spatial, architectural, and material understanding of the Capitol complex. The eclectic symbolism that one stumbles upon at the precinct, to the ideas of the cosmic man, to the poetics of the spaces that are showcased, somehow through the photographs that I personally took over the last years, and more recently showcased at the Tower of Shadows only last month. Now, the word Capitol is derived from the Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., which is named after the Capitoline Hill in Rome, which was home to the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus. The primary use of this most important temple in ancient Rome was a meeting place for the Senate, the end point of triumphs to a repository of cultural, political, and ritual objects. And much like the Jupiter Optimus Maximus, Corbusier designed the Capitol complex with the Assembly Building, the High Courts, and the Secretariat Building, and the entire precinct elevated from the city grid. The Capitol embodies the dignity of three fundamental powers: executive, legislative, and judicial for the governments. And from identified vantage points, the Capitol has a setting against a picturesque backdrop of the Shivaliks. This is a fascinating paper clay model that shows the contours, the terrain and the lower foothills of Shivaliks, modeled by skillfully crumbling a card paper and clay. Corbusier perhaps aroused his interest in eclectic symbols due to the Indian context of the site, and therefore imagined the complex as a sacred place with layers of cosmic significance. As you know, the Greeks developed classical orders based on the human proportions. Vitruvius, the famous architect of the 1st century, studied classical proportions and defined the Vitruvian Man, later sketched by Leonardo da Vinci. Le Corbusier also developed a proportion system called Le Modèle, which he actively engaged with in the case of Chandigarh. The Vastu Purusha Mandala, derived from the Vastu Shastra pattern, in which Purush represent the cosmic man and the mandala, the mathematical representation of the cosmos. Together they represent a proportional system for the built environment, keeping in mind well-being of the residents. And Corbusier saw Capitol as being at the head of the cosmic man, who would link the site as a microcosm with the cosmos. This perhaps may explain why the Capitol was put at the extreme edge and not at the heart of the city, much like how the pre-Corb plan of Albert Meyer looked like, what you see on the right-hand side of the screen. The latter may have a better use case to integrate the city life with the Capitol complex in a more synergetic manner. Having said that, I do personally feel that the placement also may not necessarily mean that it can't be integrated in everyday city life. Now, taking you through the spatial layout of the Capitol complex, on the top part, you get to see the the open hand monument. This is a more clear understanding of the layout of the Capitol complex. From the open hand and the pit of contemplation, one walks in the promenade and gets to the open plaza. On the northeast side, you see the Punjab and Haryana High Court building. And on the northwest side, you see the Palace of Assembly. And interspersed are these monuments like the Tower of Shadow, the Martyrs Memorial, and the Geometric Hill. And this is all bookended by the Secretariat Building on the western part of the precinct. Now I'd like to just run you through each of these spaces, structures of the Capitol complex. I'll back it up with some photographs that I've took over last few years. The Palace of Justice, the Punjab and Haryana High Courts, the three grand pylons rendered in cement concrete and painted in primary colors of green, yellow, and red. The structure mixes primary forms taken from purest geometry with a brutalist expression punctuated by polychromy of bold colors, contrasting with the monochrome appearance of the raw concrete. Apart from these three grand scale pylons is the characteristic brise-soleil that composes the rest of the facade. The 650 meter of tapestry used to line the inner walls was handcrafted by the Indian weavers in Kashmir. 8 tapestries of 64 meters square and one of 144 meters square were finished in 5 months and lend an exquisite dimension to the brutalist architecture. This is the rooftop of the building. Now, the Palace of Assembly or the Assembly Building. The Capitol complex is considered as one of the most significant pieces of the architect's realized body of works, commissioned in what Corbusier referred to as patient research. The Palace of Assembly being one of these seminal works. The program features a circular assembly chamber, a forum for conversations and transactions, and a stair-free circulation. These are some of the original drawings that happened from Corbusier's office. Inside the Palace of the Assembly houses an open plan by the grid of concrete columns. The sculptural expression of these ones sees on top of the form of a hyperbolic shell roof. This shows a stunning backdrop of the Assembly Building against this picturesque landscape. And this photograph is taken only a few months back, so this is quite current as to what the situation is like. Now, the enamel door was painted by Corbusier himself in his workshop in Paris and airlifted to India. Nearly 25 foot tall, this grand scale pivot door was meant to be a ceremonial entryway to the Assembly Building. Le Corbusier wrote to Nehru and asked him as to what symbols should the door represent, to which Nehru replied that Corbusier imagined them himself. So he designed symbols representing a new India. It showcases in polychromy the relation of man and the cosmos, imagery like the sun path, lunar eclipse, and equinox. The lower part of the door shows animals, natural forms, and the landscape that he saw in the north of India. And Le Corbusier abstracted ecosystem, modular man, water streams, turtle, bull, fish, and serpent. The proverbial tree of knowledge flowering into the fruits of knowledge beautifully sits in the lower part of the center. Against the backdrop, one sees the open hand monument. The open hand sculpture is an 85 foot tall metal vane erected inside a sheer wall portal. weighing about 50 tons. It was hand-casted in sheet metal in Bhakra Nangar's workshop at Nangal. The hand, which signifies the Chandigarh dictum, open to give, open to receive, is engineered in a manner that the fixing is done over a mammoth steel ball bearing, so it may rotate by wind to display the prevalent wind direction. The monument rests against the scenic foothills of Shivalik, inside the pit of contemplation, which was aspired to be an inspirational symbol of humanity, unarmed, fearless, and spiritually receptive, taken cues from the quintessential North Indian spirit. The trench of consideration or pit of contemplation below the open hand was designed to facilitate and encourage public debates, much like a Roman forum or a Greek agora. Now, this photograph is quite unique because it is taken from a higher vantage point of the geometric hill. Here you see the Tower of Shadow on your left-hand side, and on the far end you see the Martyrs Memorial against the picturesque backdrop of the foothills of Shivalik. The Martyrs Memorial is a concrete ramp and trench symbolizing those who died after partitions in 1947. The eclectic symbolism that one stumbles upon, like the swastika and the chakra, is an ancient Indian cosmology symbol, which some even saw as a symbol of fascism, since Corbusier worked for the Nazi government during the Second World War. Trivia. The Tower of Shadow shows how structures can be used to control the sunlight with brise soleil. Its north side is open because sun doesn't shine from the north. It's a large-scale experimental study of the sun's angle throughout the day and the year. It's blocked by the igneous design of the sunbreakers, also called brise soleil, checking their ingress from all cardinal directions. This is part of the geometric hill that you see. This is from where the photograph is taken. Now, the geometric hill symbolizes the daily succession of light and dark, which governs human activity. An abstract mural depicting the 24-hour solar movement, charting out its rise and setting every day. As most of us are aware that we went through a very dark period of militancy in the 80s, which set us back by almost a decade. Those were unfortunate times to happen to any state and people, to say the least. We have, in some capacity, witnessed the Capitol Complex precinct cordoned off and put under the control of CRPF, military police, and so on. This has certainly created a physical and psychological barrier in the minds of the citizens, so much that the elected member of Parliament of the Chandigarh UT openly confided in us speaking at the pit of contemplation only last month that he has never had the chance to witness the open hand before in his lifetime. I personally consider this as a symbolic milestone to assume the case for most of us who have lived and been raised in Chandigarh and its Tri-City. We set up a foundation called Foundation Chandigarh a few months back, this year itself, and its inaugural event in October 2024 was a tiny effort in this direction. The foundation is set up with a vision to facilitate an intervention for greater understanding of the city's architectural, urban, and historic fabric, to foster Chandigarh's sustainable future growth. FCH collaborated with University of Cambridge, Global Humanities Initiative, Chandigarh College of Architecture, and Department of Tourism to make a small start to claim our own space that we call a city and inhabit and engage with these more meaningful manner. Architecture and fragments of urban quarters become only meaningful once it starts being inhabited and celebrated by the citizens on a daily basis, rather than being literally distant and out of reach. The historic legacy of Chandigarh is invariably frozen in time by citing the baggage of its very own iconic past, rather than paving the way to address the future. The chief curator of Victoria and Albert Museum, London, flew down especially for the event to deliver a keynote and talk about tropical modernism and its relevance with respect to Chandigarh and the future it entails. After a short walk from the pit of contemplation to the Tower of Shadows, we hosted an exhibition of photographs. Without corrupting the sanctity of the structure, we used the brise soleil as a visual guide to display and showcase our photographs. With our own modest budget, we set up the lighting design, printed large format photographs for citizens to engage with. It is rather surreal to merge the object of investigation and the subject. This was done with a backdrop of a violin artist. Now I'll briefly take you through the snippets of the work that our practice does. We tend to connect with our Harappan past, use of materials like exposed brick, to a more recent modernist sensibility. Use of exposed concrete, millwork, industrial details, adapt such materiality into a contemporary register of design language. Use of 3D printing in concrete has been our core interest to engage with and solve social impact projects. These are inflated metal sculptural wall that we did for an EVH microfactory. And these sculptural totems that you see are cast in situ terrazzo totems. This is a microfactory that we've recently completed. It's an industrial aesthetic with a lot of layering, I would say. This is a bit of a fun element. It's a conference room for the higher management area. This is an interesting layering of reverse biophilia, one could say. These are live greens. They engulf a certain area which is called the nomadic zone in this microfactory. And it's a very collaborative space. So all the furniture, all these items can be configured in various typologies. In our practice, we lay a lot of stress in the process of design, and we really invest heavily into the architectural illustrations and what they really convey for our clients and for the project design direction. This is the 3D printing that I've been talking about. So this is a pavilion that we've 3D printed in their campus itself. It's a little spill out zone for the employees to come and just break out in an exterior environment. And we also ended up printing some furniture which actually was placed inside the pavilion. And from a seemingly very rigid material, we tried to create very voluptuous and very gentle forms, all achieved with concrete. This is what the interior of the space looks like. This is another project that we've done. Again, the use of, we take cues from the modernist sensibility of Chandigarh and our Harappan roots. So terrazzo, exposed brick, all these materials are very core to our practice. These are the visuals from the studio that we have in the metaverse. This was meant to be more like a testing laboratory for all the ideas that we wanted to test in a more virtual space before we actually brought them to reality. This is the terrace of the metaverse. That's it. Thank you.